Alright, I know what you're thinking, just hear me out. Yes, you're right. Whatever it is, you're right. Go play the lottery. Anyway, hear me out really quick. Iceborne is still like 5 months out or so. We have no idea when the PC release may be. Monster Hunter World is in a bit of a dry spell for content for consoles, though PC has actually had it pretty good lately. Arctempered Nerg is suspected to be both PC and console release at the same time in the next couple weeks or so, and that means we got a long while before anything else meaningful comes along. So what to do in the meantime if you're bored of grinding or just doing speedruns? Well, let me tickle your brain a little bit and just suggest Dauntless. Stick with me here, just for a minute. Dauntless has undergone a huge patch last week, and it kind of laid out the Masteries system, which gave the game a much needed grind to keep players, well, playing. I just want to give you kind of a basic idea of what Dauntless is if you haven't played it before or just seen memes about it. And after this video, if you still think it's shit, well, go ahead and shit on me. I used your time, I deserve it. Fair game. So first off, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. In fact, I'm going to start with all the cons here just so we kind of get them out of the way. No, this game's not better than Monster Hunter, like any Monster Hunter. If you haven't played 3U or 4U, even Frontier, Gen Ultimate, go play those. You need to do that. No, this is not a Monster Hunter killer. Hell, it's not even a Monster Hunter rival. Let's not get carried away here. Think of it like a spin-off thing, kind of like God Eater. So, Capcom has had 15 years to kind of refine their systems, and Phoenix Labs has had like 1. And they put a lot of effort into the game, and it kind of shows if you've seen the way this game has progressed in the past couple months. It's really changed a lot. But anyway, let's just dive right into the cons. First off, as you may have suspected, this is a Monster Hunter-like game. However, this is online only. Monster Hunter World can still be played offline, which is great, but Dauntless cannot, and that's kind of a shame. There are other questionable design choices that go with this, like the hitbox data is all server-sided, which means exactly what you're thinking. If you have poor internet, dude, you can't play this game at all. Even if you have decent internet, the hitboxes are going to be very inconsistent, and there will be a lot of monsters either teleporting around you or getting hits when you clearly shouldn't have, stuff like that. I have no idea why they would do this, but the online-only aspect of the game does nothing but really hurt it. Maybe the console releases, especially like the Switch one, will have offline play, but right now it's bad. This is the reason why I'm never going to take the game seriously, because it's very inconsistent with hit registration. And also, even if you're playing solo, you still have to go through matchmaking process for every hunt you want to do, which can take between 30 seconds and 2 minutes to match you up with yourself. So yeah, it kind of sucks. Next on the cons is that this game is still a beta. Now they say beta, but you can buy microtransactions, which means it's the real game. There's no more account wipe. This is the game. Beta just means they can excuse bugs and glitches for months and months and months. Now, Phoenix Labs has done a really good job on fixing all the bugs and patching the game like every single week, but there are some bugs that have been lingering for months at this point. It has a decent amount of lingering issues, so don't expect it to be very polished. But, as I said, Phoenix Labs does work really hard on getting things, fixed. Now I'm going to go into the gray area of stuff. It might be cons for some people, but not all. That's kind of good and bad at the same time. Now the obvious thing here is the art design. I personally don't mind the cartoon looking style of the game. The lighting effects are really good, and it has some nice weather as well. I've heard a lot of complaints because it looks like Fortnite, and I totally get it. Trust me, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. All I'm saying is, I don't mind the way the game looks, but other people do. With that also comes the map design, which is also kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, the levels themselves are really good. The maps are big and have a lot of vegetation and breakable trees and materials to gather. It's really nice to look at, especially when you have like the god rays coming through the trees and when you get some good weather effects. It's nice. But on the other hand, the game does lack a lot of depth that Monster Hunter does in their maps. And by that I mean that Dauntless is pretty empty. Like literally empty. There's like one behemoth on the map and that is it. There used to be goats roaming around, but they were very poorly coded and just kind of like got in the way, so they were removed, which is a good idea, trust me. It's just very boring when you're looking for the behemoth and just running around these huge maps for 2 or 3 minutes with nothing going on around you. Some small monsters and signs of life or an actual ecosystem would do wonders. And it doesn't help that when you do a hunt now, you're going to get a random map and a random spawn location for the same monster like every time, so you can't just know where the monster is going to be. The other gray area is hitbox themselves. It takes a long time to get used to playing Dauntless if you've come from Monster Hunter because of 2 things. First off is that your roll iframes start in the middle of the roll animation, kind of like in Bloodborne. In Monster Hunter though, they start as soon as you press the roll button. So in Dauntless, you need to roll early so that the roll animation is mid-roll when you're going to get hit. The second is that monsters tend to have their entire body as a hitbox during an attack. So if the monster does like a tail attack and you're near the head or the paws as it starts the animation, you're going to get hit right away anyway while you're expecting to wait for the tail to come around. It gets kind of annoying when the monsters just throw their entire body at you and you get touched by the tip of the tail and get knocked back 15 feet and take half your health. I mean, it just takes some getting used to. It's not inherently bad, it's just different coming from Monster Hunter. And on a smaller note, the story and lore is pretty weak. I mean, Monster Hunter didn't have anything amazing here either. I mean, so I'm not really comparing them. It's just a note. Don't expect like meaningful dialogue and like a compelling story here. It's a hunting game. Go hunt. Alright, so if you made it through most of this doom and gloom, thank you. Let's talk about the good stuff though. Starting with the weapons, because that's what hunting games revolve around, right? There are currently 6 weapons, which might seem low, but there will be more. There have already been 2 added since I started playing, so trust me, there'll be more later on. But right now, the 6 weapons are the sword, the hammer, the axe, the chain blades, the war pike, and the repeaters. I'm not going to dive too much into each of the weapons, but I'm just going to give you kind of a brief overview of how each of them plays. But I really like the weapons in this game. They all feel really good to use and have very cool animations and just have good hit stuns. Sword feels kind of like a very fast switch axe. You build meter with your attacks, then you activate your special gauge to charge your sword for an amount of time and start dealing a ton of elemental damage, or you can augment it to do whirlwinds and just go straight up ham. The hammer is basically a hammer and a gun lance. You smash heads and then use the cannon attached to it to launch yourselves in different directions, empower your swings, or blast the shit out of monsters. The axe is a longsword and greatsword mix. You charge big swings for big damage that builds meter, and you use your special to throw your axe and slam down on the monster, which increases your charge level like a longsword finisher would do. It gets pretty nasty as you build that meter up. The war pike is something I haven't actually used much. It's kind of a weird one. It's a glaive and a gun. You build meter on swings, which then increase your damage as the meter builds up, or you can pocket the meter and hold like 4 charges, which you can use to fire like a gun. Chain blades are basically God of War incarnate. Old God of War, not God of Boy. Think dual blades, but you can blink and kick off monsters to evade. It's very stylish and it's actually really strong too. Lastly are the repeaters. It's a gun that you have to play at melee range. The damage falls off very fast and you have to reload while next to a behemoth to suck their aether energy out of them to empower your clips, which is the only really way you're going to do damage. And they can throw buffs and mines and other weird wacky effects. So after the weapons, the next big thing in a hunting game is, well, something to hunt. I think there are about 28 behemoths right now if you count the dire variants between them, which should be kind of like Rathalos versus Hatcher Rathalos. This is about what Monster Hunter World has currently. Anyway, I really like the designs of all the behemoths in this game. There are a lot of unique mechanics and designs to the fights that just make it very different compared to Monster Hunter. On top of these base behemoths, then you get the dire variants, which are much tougher, have new moves and new things that you might expect from variants in a Monster Hunter game. Then you get the heroic versions, which have just much nastier status effects, and it just amplifies their core mechanics to the max. Dauntless suffers from similar issues that Monster Hunter does in that they have a limited amount of skeletons, so a lot of the monsters share some similar moves since they share the skeleton, but there's actually plenty of interesting mechanics here to kind of ignore that. For example, the Gnasher, the Pangar, the Hellion, and the Boreas all share the same skeleton, but man, their fights are entirely different. The only thing that's identical between the 4 is like the ground stomp and maybe a tail slam. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the behemoths are fun, and they kind of evolve with you and get progressively harder, and have some really nice difficulty options to go with them. There are a ton of other behemoths that just have crazy fights, and I truly enjoy them. So obviously, after you kill your behemoths, you get to make armor pieces out of them, because it's a hunting game. And each armor piece has, pretty standard defense, resistance, a skill, and a slot. You can customize your skills and get some wild effects and abilities that you just would not really work in Monster Hunter. Things like temporary hit point shields, or attack speed buffs, or converting damage from stagger, part break, and wounding. By the way, those damage types are a whole thing in and of themselves, and we'll get into those sometime later. Anyway, there's a ton of things to choose from, so you can build your character like the way you want. On top of the basic armor and slots, as you play and progress, you unlock Masteries, which is a new thing. Basically, it's something to grind for and keep you playing, which is fine because the game really needed it. You can meet certain objectives based on the behemoth to increase your Slayer rank, which will give you permanent bonuses to hit points or stamina or gathering. And you can increase your mastery with weapons to unlock different augments and abilities for them. Between the armor, the skills, the augments, and the abilities of the weapons themselves, you can really make a build that changes your playstyle and abilities. Or you can go meta and fill up on nothing but DPS stuff and go wreck face. A small note here is that there are also exotic items which you can find the recipes for, which will unlock special weapons and armors to be crafted. But honestly, these things keep going from overpowered beyond belief to nerfed into the ground to back to OP and then back to being useless. So they're cool, but right now they're kind of in like a really weird place. Lastly, there are a large amount of consumables and throwables and other items that you can bring on the hunt with you. I stopped using these because, you know, TA rules, but there are a lot of neat things here, so you can just kind of go wild with that as well. My only gripe here is that there are no skills that affect the items that you use, which I think would be a great addition to this game. Anyway, this is supposed to be a quick introduction to Dauntless if you're coming from the Monster Hunter series. It's very familiar, but you know, it's got its own thing going here, which I really like. Now, if you're asking why I bothered to even make this video, well, the reason is simple. There's not much to do in Monster Hunter right now. Content was trickled out over a year and interest came and went. We're all waiting for Iceborne right now, and nothing really exciting on the horizon except for Arc-Tempered Nurg, which will last a couple days and that'll be it. So if you find yourself a bit bored with Monster Hunter and you're looking for other games to play, I just ask that you give Dauntless a try. It's free, it's not going to cost you anything except some time. It's a cash shop, but you can pretty much just ignore that. It's nothing but cosmetics and crap anyway. So yeah, free game. If you want to shit on it, at least give it a try first. Thanks for watching, people. Good luck on your hunts, whatever game you may be playing.